peaceful day in Gotham City.
Hello. Yes, I completely understand. It has been some time since we've done a review episode here on the Batcave podcast. Yes, I know. I gave a promise at the beginning of the summer that I would follow a timeline, but then there were things that happened, and I look. I mean, we had the release of the trailer for the animated DVD. I had to talk about that. I managed to get Burt Ward on the show. Was I supposed to ignore Burt Ward so that I could review Minerva or the last Penguin episode? Really? Okay, 50th anniversary of the Green Hornet. I mean, the Hornet's sting is an important part of this whole thing. All right, maybe not an important... Well, I'm enjoying it with Jim Beard. And then there was Adam's birthday. I had to celebrate Adam's birthday. Yes, I did say I would do the review episodes over the course of the whole... But I'm going to... Yes, Mom. I promise I will get the show back on track. You too, citizen. Take care. Fans. What are you going to do about them? Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here, and we're coming to the final 6. This is it. 6 more stories in the Batman series to review, and this is the first of them. It's the final 6. It's Penguin's final story, the end here with Burgess Meredith, although he will sort of make one more appearance, Penguin, not Burgess Meredith, in one more upcoming episode. You'll just see the back of him there, and you'll hear the familiar wah-wah as he's hanging out with, I think it's Dr. Cassandra and her assistant there at the state penitentiary. But, you know, I'm kind of sad to see this because, you know, the episodes have been a mix. We just did Nora Clavicle last week, and that was a disaster, obviously. One of the worst episodes of the entire series. And I went into this episode with some mixed feelings because as a kid I remember not liking it, but then as I'm watching it I'm finding some things to like, and I'm hoping that my guest today agrees with me on these things, or maybe can, you know, point out where I'm seeing things maybe too optimistically. Maybe I'm just being hopeful because it's the end of the series here. Joining me to discuss this final Penguin episode is the author of Batman at 45, Mr. Chris Gould. Chris, welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome. Well, sorry, that's a nice welcome from you, John, and thank you for having me.
Well, so you sent me your notes because you actually have been updating Batman at 45. And, you know, you and I at least just from just reading that and such, you and I seem to have different perspectives. So this is going to be an interesting discussion because you're not as positive, and I didn't think I was going to be as positive. I'm not saying this is a great episode. This is by no means a great episode. But when you consider the third season, I'm finding this one to be a little better than some, which is sad to say considering it's not that great.
Sure, yeah. I think, you know, when I watched it again last week, I guess what I kind of ended up thinking was, yeah, given that they hardly used any kind of gizmos or gadgets, and it was a really cheaply done episode, yeah, they managed to get a lot out of it on a limited budget.
They did. I agree with you on that. They managed to get a lot out of it on a limited budget. And I got to say, actually, and this is one thing too, the sets for this one, considering it's a third season, they seem to put a little more effort into it. It's still pretty flimsy, but they put a little bit more effort. It doesn't seem like it's just the black stage, although it is, with a few props in the background. They actually seem to put up some walls for some of these places and such, including in our opening scene, the Gotham Mint there.
Yes, they did, and I thought the hospital scene as well. At least it kind of remotely looked like a hospital. So I think, given that we're comparing it, directly to the Nora Clavicle episode, which went before it, where the set was, I think, one of TV's most unmitigated disasters. I think this episode's set stands up quite well when compared with that.
Oh my God, the pier scene.
Oh, dear. Thank goodness you didn't ask me to do that one.
Exactly. Oh, that one was a tough sell. I was lucky that Chris Franklin was like, "Well, I've never been on the show. What can I do?" And I'm like, "Here you go." So let's talk about this episode. It's called Penguin's Clean Sweep. It aired January 25th, 1968. And like we said, the show opens with Penguin breaking and entering into the Gotham City Mint. And as I say, the set itself seems a little bit more elaborate. It's definitely a much wider set. There's a lot more items in it and such because, you've got the money-making process going on. And it seems, I say, that something's going to happen. I mean, certainly Penguin knocks out everybody with his gas and such, and we see that he's asking Miss Broom, I think, or what was her name again? The mole. Miss Clean. It's Clean, wasn't it? That's right. Miss Clean, of course. He doesn't refer to her very often by name, so it was a little. I couldn't remember for a moment there. Miss Clean. He asks her, what would she like, and he tells her, "Oh, look, we got the ink, we got the money." So right there, it all looks obvious what Penguin's up to, and it seems that way when we then cut to Wayne Manor, where we get, oh my goodness, it's the living room.
And when Barbara told me she'd been elected chairman of the Gotham City anti-littering campaign...
Daddy arranged for this meeting with you, Bruce.
Well, I'm glad he did, Barbara. Never hurts to remind anyone of the litter basket.
Gosh, yes. A clean city is a healthy city.
Then we can count on your support.
Of course.
The call for Commissioner Gordon, sir.
Take it there.
Oh, thank you, Alfred. Commissioner Gordon. Terrible news, Chief O'Hara. Use the red phone and call Batman immediately. I'll hold on to this line.
Anything serious, Commissioner?
The Penguin just been reported in the Mint.
Penguin in the Mint? Yeah. That is serious.
Oh, sir, this is perhaps an inopportune moment, but the downstairs hot water line has burst once again, and the shut-off valve seems to be rusted up.
Yes, I'll give you a hand with it, Alfred. Would you people excuse me?
Yeah, surely.
Yes.
It's the only time we see the living room in the third season.
Really?
It is. It's the only time, and it's a tight shot. It's very tight, so we don't go seeing the background with the outdoors, the doors leading to the deck or anything like that. It's narrowed in on the fireplace, and even then, the walls look a little different than usual.
They've obviously just sort of hastily cobbled a few things together and tried desperately to recreate some of the magic of the first and second season, maybe. But yes, you're referring to the scene where the commissioner is happens to be at Wayne Manor at the moment. The phone call is placed.
The phone call that's placed, and like you said, recreate the magic. It's funny you say that because I feel this whole entire opening is trying to recreate that magic of the first and second season, not only with the view of the living room and such, but the fact that there's Barbara with Commissioner Gordon, and Gordon is all proud of the fact that Barbara has been named the chairman of the Gotham Anti-Litter Campaign. A little thing that kind of runs through this entire episode, the theme of cleanliness and the virus and the sickness that's going to happen and all, when he gets the call about Penguin being at the Mint and such. So Alfred has to come up with his little ruse to get Bruce away about the burst pipe and all that. So Bruce slips away. And it's all there. The only thing missing at the end is when Bruce is talking to O'Hara, as Batman and such, and he says, "We'll be right there." We're just missing him and Dick looking at each other and him saying to the Bat Poles. Otherwise, this is an opening of a first or second season episode.
Yes, it is. That's right. Because I seem to remember that in most of the third season episodes, when the call is placed to Wayne Manor, there's nobody there. Obviously, Aunt Harriet now is her appearances have been limited due to ill health. So there's absolutely no need for Alfred to make up any kind of ruse at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're already in the study, so it's not like, they got to rush anywhere and such. I mean, yes, there are some times where he does get to utter to the bat poles and such like that to Dick and such. But even then, it's not always that case. There's been a lot of cold openings, where it takes place, at Barbara's apartment or something else. And then we have to cut to credits. And then when we come back, they've already made their way back to Wayne Manor and are just emerging from the bat poles. So this was actually a nice little throwback to the first and second season.
It certainly was.
Mm-hmm. The two arrive at headquarters, and what's interesting is you would think they're going to go straight upstairs. We'll be right there in the office, and we'll get, since we've already got this setting, we'll have them doing their little powwow and stuff. But no, the duo run right into Penguin as he and his goons are coming out of the elevator.
The dynamic do-gooders! You've been helping old ladies across the street, Batman?
We're going to help you into a jail cell, you beaked buffoon!
You leave my beak out of this, you baby barnacle.
Let's get him back.
No! Stop this loutish violence, you teenage truant. It offends my cultured soul.
Which begs the question, because we haven't even gotten into the whole false arrest thing yet, because he hasn't arrested him yet. What is Penguin even doing in the building in the first place? Unless he wanted to set all this up, and he timed it just so perfectly that Batman and Robin were arriving.
Well, I'd love to believe that the sort of fantastic planning that Penguin showed in seasons 1 and 2 was on display again in season 3, and that this is all part of his clever ruse, and not some kind of catastrophic cock up on the part of the scriptwriter.
Yes.
But after that point, I mean, I think the scene does provide some mild entertainment, I guess.
Oh yes, it does. No, I absolutely agree. And Batman is typical Batman, because he takes Penguin and the goons up to Gordon's headquarters, has them, for arrest and such, and Penguin tells him that he's going to sue for false arrest because he did nothing wrong. And O'Hara's like, he's right. He stole nothing. We got nothing on him. But Batman turns the tables and says, what about the breaking and entering charge? We can nail him on that. And so because of it, Batman uses that to leverage himself out of the lawsuit Penguin's going to play, and that, they'll drop the charges. And that's typical Batman in a way, though, because it's like, all right, we're going to let him go because we're going to find out what this whole scheme is about. We could have easily arrested him, and, he wouldn't have been in jail for very long. But let's let him go. Let's let him hang himself, and we'll see what's going. And he's done that in the past.
Exactly, and I think in my latest notes, I pointed out that Batman does. He says something. We can't hold Penguin for very long on such a minor charge. And I thought, well, given the amount of time, this is Penguin's 19th or 20th appearance in Batman. Given the major crimes he's committed, even when committing a major crime, they can't seem to hold him for too long. So, I think it's just a flaw in the Gotham City penitentiary system. Full stop. I think. But yeah, it's sort of evoking the first season again. I think, isn't it? That the criminal sort of is seen sort of entering some building at the beginning of the episode, and everything that they do is kind of part of some bigger riddle. They don't steal anything. They don't damage anything, and it's all up to firstly to the police to say, well, should we arrest him, and then Batman to say, well, no, actually he hasn't committed a crime, and then it all leads into, oh well, let him play out his hand,
right,
and hopefully we get a more exciting story. Hopefully.
Now, that's one thing, though, too. Didn't Catwoman once say whether she knocks over a hot dog cart or something like that, or a bank, it doesn't make a difference for a 13-time loser like her? Wouldn't that be the same for Penguin? Couldn't they hold him even longer because of his past, based on what he's done, even for the breaking and entering charge?
That's right, because there was it in the opening scene when. There's a point at which they talk about, Penguin just being in the mint.
Right.
And I think it's either Dick Grayson or Robin who says, like, Penguin in the mint, that must be catastrophic and terrible, And there's no suggestion that he's committed a crime or anything, but just, as you said, because he has that reputation, if that is the reputation that goes around with him, yes, surely they would at least have some motivation to hold him for longer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know why they...
But there's little things like that throughout this episode where you think, whether it's based on precedent or whether it's based on foreknowledge and such, that certain things then don't work. And especially the very ending, which we'll get into. The very ending doesn't work for one colossal reason. We'll get into that. Batgirl arrives, because obviously she knew what was going on because she was in Bruce's home as Barbara there. And she reports on how the Mint employees are still sound asleep, which I thought was interesting too. She's got that knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not O'Hara getting a call from the police or something. Batgirl brings this to them. So they decide to all head to the Mint, where Batman analyzes the banknotes. And I did like this. I always do like when Batman is the scientist. Whether the science is sound or not, I don't care. I like Batman the scientist with his little Bat Lab kit and all. And he discovers that the money has been covered in Lygerian sleeping sickness brought on from the Lygerian fruit fly. And once again, this is something that annoys me about the third season. Robin's an idiot.
Take a look, Robin.
Looks like a bunch of miniature tadpoles, Batman.
Batgirl.
Bacteria. They seem to be of the species Somnophilia.
Somnophilia Lygeria, to be exact, Batgirl.
Lygerian sleeping sickness.
Robin is a total idiot. It goes all the way back to the Riddler episode where Robin couldn't solve one of Riddler's riddles. Now here he is. He goes, Robin, what do you see here? He pushes it over. Robin looks and he goes, looks like tadpoles. It's like, really? Really, Robin? I mean, even like just to say it looks like some sort of strain from this fly or something. Then he turns to Batgirl, the historian. Now, remember, she's the historian. That's what she studied. Now, mind you, at the same time, also, she manages to put together a Batgirl cycle. She's got all this other stuff. She's got her own universal antidotes. So there must be some science in her, too. She sees it right away.
Yeah.
You know? I hated that they sacrificed Robin's intelligence and gave it to Batgirl.
That's right. They took out all of his good bits and just basically handed them on a plate to Batgirl. Really, I think I've heard other people say that it was quite noticeable how much Robin's role diminished in season 3, and he might as well just not have been there, really, because as you said, it sort of happened episode after episode, really, and not only was the quantity of his lines cut, but just the contributions that he made were just totally out of keeping with a guy who was nicknamed the Boy Wonder in seasons 1 and 2.
Exactly, nicknamed the Boy Wonder, basically a Batman in training. I think that's probably why many fans point to Wail of the Siren as probably one of the best of the third season, because Robin gets to shine. I mean, Robin leads, and Batgirl follows.
Yes, exactly. It was one of the fewer occasions on which Robin was trusted with carrying an episode. And that one, yes, I think he really carried it quite well. I never tire of watching that one.
No, me either. So now that they know that the banknotes have been contaminated and money has been sent out, they decide to split their forces. They send Batgirl to the bank to find out, and stop the distribution of the money. And they themselves head to the hospital. And I do love the hospital scene. Like you said, it's one of the better sets. Penguin and himself are already there. They're getting double inoculated to make absolutely certain there's no chance. And keep that in mind. This is where the problem with the ending comes along. They're double inoculated, and then he pours the rest of the vaccine down the drain as Batman and Robin arrive.
You're not protected against a good right jab, you slimy bird.
It's Betty Bye for you, Penguin.
Nobody catches the Penguin sleeping, dynamic dreamers. Try this on for size.
And Penguin releases 3 of the Lygerian flies as he makes his escape.
The lethal Lygerian fruit fly. Pleasant dreams, Batfink.
He's got to make sure those flies don't get out into the open.
Look out, Robin. They are deadly.
And I did like it. I like the whole thing with the bat swatter.
What about the insecticide bat bomb?
I left it in the Batmobile. But we dare not open that door until all 3 of these flies are dead. Fortunately, I brought my all-purpose bat swatter.
And I thought it was interesting. You made note of this whole scene as well, but one thing you may want to add is, did you notice there was a moment of silence as each fly died?
You got one, Batman.
Were the other 2 flies in a moment of shock swatted away?
You got another one.
It's one of those scenes, I think, where if you sort of watch it in the middle of a whole stack of episodes, as I did the first time, you're kind of just thinking, my goodness me, what on earth are they doing here? When I watched it, on its own, with nothing else to compare it against, no, actually, I thought, it's quite fun to see these 2 guys in costume again doing crazy things. And
Hold perfectly still. This calls for the bat tweezers.
I think it has some comedy value, yeah.
Oh, it does. It definitely does.
One bite from this fruit fly, Robin, and you might have been asleep for years.
Holy Rip Van Winkle.
But this specimen might prove quite rewarding research-wise.
The last fly lands on Robin's nose, and suddenly the perspective of the size of the fly to the container that the 3 were in makes no sense at all, because that fly is as big as the container.
Yes. He was obviously really itching to get out, I guess.
Yes. And I did like the fact, because as a kid, I watched General Hospital, and the doctor there was played by John Berardino, who played Steve Hardy on General Hospital for many years. I was 70s, 80s. I was, there for the Luke and Laura story, the whole when Port Charles was frozen by the Constantine? I forget. The rich family that John Colicos played the head of, and Elizabeth Taylor played his wife. Right,
yes. Well, I don't know too much about John Berardino's career. I just know that it was still his acting career was still in a very early stage when he appeared on this episode, and I believe that the General Hospital thing came about 4 or 5 years after this was filmed, I think.
Oh, no. He had been doing General Hospital already for a number of years.
Had he really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So his nominations came, his Emmy nominations came after.
Oh, yeah, probably the Emmy nominations. But he was one of the early, when General Hospital first started on television, because I remember seeing black and white episodes with him.
Right. Yeah. I see.
Yeah. But I think as far as him being noticed by the Academy, that probably was later on down the line.
Again, interesting, because when the first 2 or 3 minutes of the scene, he doesn't speak at all.
That was the weird thing. I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he just, is that fear because he's afraid of Penguin? But he just kept nodding and even Penguin's like, say something,
At first, I just thought he was going to be like the first, visible, non-speaking extra.
Right.
I thought, as you said, when Penguin and his goons leave and he's just left with Batman and Robin, that's when he suddenly opens up. Obviously, yes, if he's well known on General Hospital, he has to play a doctor, of course. But and then I guess if he's well known, he has to have at least a bit of a speaking part.
Sure.
So he sort of dramatically comes to life after all the flies have been captured. Provides some minor exposition, I think, to move the plot along.
Yes, he does. Well, he informs Batman that it's going to take 24 hours to get, more of the vaccine. But
with vaccine, yes.
Yeah. So they Batman tells him just get it here as soon as possible, and they run off to the bank, and at the bank we discover that money has already been distributed. And again, this set isn't all that bad. For a quick scene, this is not a bad looking set.
Yeah, probably just almost like a knee-jerk reaction to the previous week's episode, I guess. So,
exactly.
Well done to them.
I almost wonder if it was almost like, well, Burgess is coming on, we'll make the set a little bit more. Although then I think about it, they bring Frank Gorshin back and they gave him that god-awful gym, which was just the black drop with a few props. So, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird that this had a little more thought put into it. It's not perfect. Again, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm thinking if this was an equivalent first or second season episode, the set design would be even better. But still, for what it is for third season, it stands out as something a little better.
Yeah, it does. I think there's definitely something in what you said about dressing it up a bit for someone of Burgess Meredith's stature when he comes on set. I think the horse riding adventure also was more creative than usual.
Yes, I agree.
Set. With Frank Gorshin, I think he was probably not on as good terms with the Batman producers as Burgess Meredith was, because Burgess had stayed loyal during season 2, and Frank apparently wanted a pay rise. And I think that may have riled a couple of people.
Maybe.
So it may just have been their way of showing him who was boss by saying, well, you may think you're bigger than the show, but,
yeah,
you're not big enough to get a decent set, kind of thing.
Right. That's very possible. And so Batman is like, okay, we need to send out a warning to all the media, let them know that, there is contaminated money and people should not be touching their money and such. The warning, though, is so vague because it's like, it just sounds like your money could be contaminated. Don't touch it. Even Gordon actually finds it a bit drastic, but he does it anyway because Batman tells him to.
Right, well, this was a guy who won the election for city mayor, so I guess he commands the trust of the citizens.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's the scene where the two youngsters are walking in the street with that big radio, and they hear the announcements.
We interrupt our music to bring you a special bulletin. Some of the money in Gotham City has been infected with a deadly tropical disease. Any contact with money now circulating in Gotham City may be extremely dangerous.
The announcement itself doesn't seem convincing enough for them just to immediately tip all of their money onto the road. But the citizens of Gotham, everything's black and white for them. Just take no chances. If there's a hint that something might be tampered with, just discard it.
Yeah, that's true. I like that, black and white.
It really is, isn't it? There's no in between. So before we know it, the whole city has just discarded every bill of money that it holds.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked also that you noted, I completely missed it. I don't know why I missed it, because I actually kind of liked it, was the surfing music that the kids are playing on their big radio.
Well, it appeared again in the Three Bells in London, or Londinium, and then it came back again here as well.
That's right.
It did. Oh. I mean, I personally, I don't know whether it's just because it's forever tied to the surfing scene in my mind, but it's obviously the most, for me, it's the most memorable track from the third season. I quite like the feel of it. I think it's got a nice groove to it. I think it captures the spirit of the time, and it kind of gives you a bit of a feel-good factor, when you watch these scenes, but also probably hints at the speed at which Billy May had to compose all this stuff after Nelson Riddle, I think, left quite hurriedly at the end of season 2. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of reasons as to why that piece could have been reused over and over again, but I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I did too, and I'd forgotten also that they did use it in the Londinium episodes too as well. So Penguin takes advantage of all this money being ditched by the people of Gotham all over. Even the crooks are returning money to the bank after they just stole it when they get the warning and such. He's coming through the streets with sweepers, gathering up the money. And again, this is another little weird scene that doesn't make any sense. Batgirl arrives. She's quickly captured and knocked out. And Penguin, rather than doing something with her, just leaves her on the side there of the sidewalk and heads off because he's got to collect his money as he leaves at the end of Act 1. And we get that song, and I was trying to see if I could find any connection, like what the song was a parody of and such, but I couldn't find anything.
No, I couldn't find anything either. But I think, yes, I too was kind of more preoccupied with, given the history between Penguin and Batgirl in both of her personas. I mean, it just beggars belief that he just said, I haven't got time to deal with her, I'm just going to go sweep up money. Yeah, it was, I felt, given the amount of time left in the episode, they could have worked a little trap in there just to how can I say? Well, change the tempo, change the pace of it.
Right. No, I agree. I totally agree. And I'd forgotten about that. They have a history. So it's like, here's someone who did me wrong. Yeah, just leave her by the side of the road.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, I think a lot of the a lot of the third season scripts just tend to sort of ramble on, I suppose, and who knows what scenes were cut in the process of making this episode. Maybe the original plan was to have her in a trap, and then they just went, we got to cut something somewhere, and they cut 3 pages. I mean, who knows?
Right. Now, I do like this opening to the second act here, where Bruce starts making phone calls to his fellow financiers and warns them about the infected money. And I forgot for a moment as I'm watching the scene, because, we're so used to today that when you used to have to make long-distance calls, a lot of times you had to raise your voice.
Hello, Ibn Mukdash. This is Bruce Wayne. No, it's not about my oil interests. I called to tell you that the currency here in Gotham City is infected with a dangerous disease. I want to warn you against accepting any of it for the next few days. You're quite welcome. You might pass the information on to the other financiers in your area of the world. Yes, goodbye, Ibn. Is that,
Carpathia.
Thank you. Hello? Mr. Bolescu?
Yes, that's right. And it's not so often that we hear Bruce Wayne speaking in a raised voice. Probably the one time that sticks out is when the King Tut dresses up as the Mummy, and Bruce Wayne has to yell for a doctor in the house.
Yes.
But yeah, it's quite. It makes for a nice, entertaining change to see Bruce really kind of giving it some over the phone. He tends to lose a lot of the sort of suave sophistication that he normally portrays.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And not realizing it at the time as I'm watching that scene, it's more than just simply Bruce warning his financiers because, they all deal with money and such, but he does have a plan that we find out afterwards, because Penguin at his hideout tries to buy a country in order to put a house in, and he realizes that he can't because nobody will touch his money.
Yes, indeed. As far as season 3 plots go, that's a little bit of a nice twist, a little bit of a thought behind someone's action, and adds a slight element of depth to what's going on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. We get back to the Batcave, and Batman is continuing to examine the fly. He's got Alfred working the weather station, trying to figure out what the weather forecast is like for the day, and he gets a call from Penguin to Bruce Wayne. Penguin threatens to release 500 fruit flies unless Bruce tells everyone the money is good, and Bruce says he won't. So Penguin goes through with his threat. He goes over and he gets, and I like the way you noted this. I completely didn't really catch this. The box of 500 fruit flies clearly marked as though he purchased them,
Yes.
like that.
Is that from a catalog or something? Yeah.
I totally missed that. And again, though, but considering the size of the fly on Robin's nose earlier, I can't believe 500 flies are in that box.
Maybe it was a mislabeled box. I don't know.
Maybe.
If they have a pack of 500, they got to have a pack of 100 or maybe even 50 or something, right? I mean,
You're right.
They must have given a bulk discount or something, but again, a nice little comic touch, which I missed the first time, but then just when I was paying a bit more attention to it, I thought, funny.
Yeah. And I do like, actually, because Penguin has sort of, not that it was a backup plan to begin with, but it's sort of his consolation. He's like, okay, fine, I can't use the money. I'll knock everybody out in Gotham City, and I'll just strip the city clean of all its jewels and loot. And this way I'll at least have something for my troubles.
Which is fine, but then you kind of think, well, at which point did he get hold of the 500 flies? Because, why would he only have released 3 in the earlier scene when he could have totally, tied Batman up with 500?
I guess, yeah.
Batman would have had to have taken so much time to kill them all that Penguin could have just robbed all the banks and escaped and
yeah,
to his secret Pelican Island hideaway or wherever he goes.
And from this point on, the episode sort of rushes through to the end there. Batman calls Gordon, and Batgirl is there in the office when Gordon gets the call. He wants them all to meet him at Gotham National Bank. We cut to the bank. It's outdoors, and it looks like everyone has succumbed to the sleeping sickness. When Penguin arrives, he's stepping over them and such.
Flies really did their work. They're all sleeping like babies, and even this mutton-headed police chief. Of course, he looks like he's sleeping even when he's awake. What have you got here? Watch. This is no more than I deserve. Very fine watch.
You won't be needing a watch where you're going.
What?
You'll need a calendar. A 20-year calendar.
This is impossible. You're all infected with Lygerian Sleeping Sickness.
Oh, you see, that's what happens, Pinky Poo, when you send out a fly to do a man's job.
That's right, Pinky Poo. We're just sleepwalking.
What do you say to a little sleep fighting, Robin?
Good idea, Batgirl.
Get him, Finks! Get him!
We'll handle this.
And a bat fight breaks out. And you noted this, too, about how this is one of those few times when, Batman's sort of like, we'll take care of this, everybody scatter. But I noticed that, I don't know, it always seems strange to me. That was ADR, that when he says that, that's voiceover. That's not actually happening there. The gestures he makes as he's saying it don't seem to fit the line. It just comes out of nowhere, and it's so obvious that the ADR is just roped in there.
Usually the line preceding a fight was ADR. I remember a few instances from season 2, especially with Robin saying, it must be a trap, or it is a trap, or something like that. And it was pretty poorly overdubbed. There have been occasions before where, O'Hara and Gordon have been right in the vicinity of a bat fight, and it's just kind of unspoken. It's just assumed that, Batman and Robin will just go on and do the business, and the police can just stand and watch.
No! Take your fumbling fingers off my person. Batman, you use a foul trick to murder those innocent fruit flies.
You murdered them, Penguin, when you let them out. My recent research on Lygerian fruit flies has proved conclusively that Gotham City's 45-degree temperature has caused an inversion of air layers.
Which, in turn, raised the atmospheric pressure and crushed the flies to death.
That's right, Batgirl.
I've been tricked!
You tricked yourself, Penguin, just as you did when you had that doctor give you a double dose of B6 vaccine. So large a dose, you'll probably contract Lygerian sleeping sickness yourself.
And me? That's impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible.
Well, you stopped the Penguin cold, Batman.
Cold indeed.
Now, how did you know it would be cold?
I consulted a very reliable weather forecaster, Commissioner, who predicted that today would be clear and cool.
Well, he was certainly right about it being cool, but those clouds up there don't look very clear.
After all, even the best of weathermen is entitled to an occasional miss.
I thought it was just a little odd. Usually when the fight breaks out, it's because the villain says, get them before they get us, or something to that effect. This time, there's Robin making some sort of a comment, and then Batgirl goes, how about we fight now? And I'm like going, what? Like, how about you've got the commissioner, the chief of police, Batman, Robin, and Batgirl, you just all get your handcuffs out and say, okay, and then maybe they'll say, all right, let's take him out. We got nothing to lose. But no, Batgirl's like, let's fight. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, she has attitude. She's supremely confident. And well, of course, she has a history with Penguin as well, doesn't she? So she may have extra incentive to stick one on him, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, the fight was fine itself. I noticed that as we're getting towards the end here, they're getting a little heavy with the title card effects for each hit. It's almost like at the end of the $6 Million Man Bionic Woman run as well, where everything required a bionic sound effect. Now everything requires a title card effect for every little kick or punch.
Sure, yeah. I can only assume that they were preparing for that absolutely appalling scene in the second from last episode where everything takes place in darkness and it's just punch cards the whole way through. Maybe this episode was a trial run. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe that's true. Yeah, because you got to sort of like vary that scene up with the darkness with some of the title cards. Wow. Yeah.
But you're right. They are just overusing it. I mean, I've never timed the fight scenes, but I imagine that they're all pretty short in season 3, and the gap between fight cards also has shortened. And yeah, sometimes it's a bit annoying because you just can't really see what's happening in the fight, really. But there we go.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it particularly stood out to me when Batgirl was up on the, I guess that's a newsstand. It was supposed to be the colored thing there. She's just kicking away, and every single kick just earned a title card.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
They were particularly overused when she was standing on something like a table or whatever. So yeah, but
right.
I guess that's why a lot of people accused her of, sort of scene stealing in season 3. Really, the overuse of the fight cards literally meant you couldn't see anything. So.
Now here's something where I know we're supposed to, because the kids look forward to it, is the bat fight. But as you mentioned, maybe if we'd had the trap, we could have cut this whole entire scene much shorter, because the very end, there's Batman explaining, that the fruit flies were crushed due to the change in air pressure from where they were to where they are now, which again, fine. Science, I don't care. It's fine. But then he also tells Penguin, you took a double dose of the vaccine, which basically induced the sleeping sickness and should be hitting you right about now. I think, honest to goodness, we could have had the trap. We could have had a little bit more story there. The very ending, forget the fight. They could have been about ready to fight when Batman would just stand there confidently, and like Robin would be like, aren't you going to like get poised or get ready and stuff? No. And just watch them drop like flies. And forget the bat fight for this one episode.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And how about this, that they could have just tied it into, Penguin's opportunity to kidnap Batgirl earlier.
Right.
He could have kidnapped her. He could have actually been on the verge of succeeding in his plot. And then suddenly, yes, the sleeping sickness kicks in just as he's about to deliver the hammer blow. And it could have been quite a dramatic escape, couldn't it, really?
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah.
They missed an opportunity there, and that's the one thing I was like, wow, because there's Batman feeling so confident. I'm like, well, then why did you even fight them? Why did you even risk anything? It just, you knew that was going to kick in at any time there. I don't know, but and then the very ending, as Batman is like, well, we predicted that the weather was going to be cool, and then suddenly the rain starts and the storm comes in, and Alfred talking right to the audience, apologizing for the miss forecast. I hate when the characters talk to the audience. I just hate it.
Yeah. I think as you said, I mean, there's so much more that they could have done with the previous scene. I can't believe that with all of these potential plot lines that they could have followed, and they actually ended up with not enough footage being shot, and they had to put that scene in as an extra. Quite a disappointing way to end the episode, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you consider also I know that, this is supposed to be comedic. The whole idea of the comedy is that these people actually believe that these absurd events occur, and they do it all with a straight face, and this is life in Gotham City. We laugh at them. We laugh at what's going on. They just take it at face value. To me, every time you turn to the camera, it's like, we get it, audience. We're in on the joke too. And I just, that shatters the illusion of Gotham City then all of a sudden.
Yes, it does. And I think we'll find now, because we're into the last 6 or 7 episodes, this tends to happen more. This is right round about the time that the producers knew the show was being cancelled, and there's a lot more self-parody. There's a lot more things that the producers want the audience to see, and as you said, they want the viewers to think, even these guys know how ridiculous it is. Even these guys are in on it. And I think especially sort of in episodes 119, 120, that really comes to the fore.
Right.
And Alfred's scene, his sort of monologue to the camera could well have been the start of that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's just talk really quick about a couple of the elements here, starting with the Penguin. I mean, I think you mentioned in your notes 19 appearances altogether?
Yes, I believe that's right. That makes him joint top along with Cesar Romero's Joker.
Right. Now, to me, they did nothing new with the character here. He's still the Penguin. My only actual qualm about his appearance in this episode is that I felt he didn't get enough to do. I felt we didn't get enough of Burgess Meredith, except for the very end.
Yeah, that's right. I think, especially with the villains who had been with the show since the beginning. We mentioned the Gaussian episode already. Teaming Cesar Romero up with Eartha Kitt for Catwoman. Yeah, I just felt that all of the big three who remained really had their parts diminished in season 3, and in general, for the villains that had carried the show from the start, I thought they had a disappointing amount of screen time.
Yeah,
and same for Burgess Meredith here. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Our goons, we do get names for them, Dustbin and Pushbroom, which, oddly enough, this time the names are connected to the Caper and not to the Penguin himself, which is usually the case. They're more connected to... Actually, that's not true. I shouldn't say that, because if I remember correctly, the Penguin episode where he opens the restaurant, he had Cordy Blue and somebody else, so that their names were also connected to the Caper. Now that I just realized that.
Yeah, sure. I think the third season in general was much more about the topics rather than the villains. So, and I think that was reflected even in the names of the henchmen this time around.
Right. And there was Miss Clean, played by Monique Van Voren, who you noted still alive at the age of 91 as of this recording.
Indeed, if you're a couple of episodes short at the end of the run, you might want to try track her down and get her on.
Well, guess what? I found her on Facebook.
Oh my goodness!
She has a Facebook page, so I sent her a friend request. We'll see, because I'm trying to see if I can start lining up. I just recently friended Edie Williams on Facebook, so I'm hoping to get her on the podcast as well.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. But, I mean, amazing, 91. It's funny because, a lot of Bat fans lament the fact that many of the folks who worked on the show aren't with us. And there are a number who aren't. But if you actually look, there are still quite a few, especially the Malls are still among us.
Yes.
Francine York has a huge, following and such on Facebook herself there.
She does indeed, and it's been very nice to see Diane McBain being very active on the Batman 66 fan page as well.
Yes.
And I think Donna Loren signed up recently as well.
Yes, she did.
She did.
Yes, she did.
So you're right. I mean, the moles, despite all the daring risks that they took in the series, have managed to live very long and healthy lives, haven't they?
Very long and healthy lives, and if you ever see their pictures, they're all still quite attractive and stunning for their age.
Yes, indeed. Exactly. So I think, they obviously, their beauty was obviously noticed by the casting directors at the time, and it's stayed with them through the years. So fantastic.
Yeah. Bat Gadget. Did you have a favorite?
Well, the only one I even noted, I think, was the fly swat.
Right.
Which, I mean, it was nice that they shaped it like a bat, and I presume that the wings of the bat can kind of sort of deliver a devastating strike to the Lygerian fruit fly.
Yeah, I agree. I like the fly swatter myself. I also liked the telescoping arm of it, so that he's able to extend it as far as he needs.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
Well, considering the fact that in this third season, they really didn't introduce a lot of new gadgets, it was pretty cool.
Yes, it was. I think, going back to what we said at the very start of this podcast, getting a lot out of a limited budget. The first time you see that fly swatter, you just think, oh, here we go, more budget cuts again. But when you actually look at what they did with it, and the fact that you laugh a couple of times when Batman uses it, and the the way that his face becomes this very sort of stern mask of concentration while he uses it. Yeah, I mean that's funny stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty good gadget as far as season 3 goes.
Yeah,
I think
I agree with that. The trivia question from Joel Eisner's official Batman Batbook. I didn't allude to it earlier, other than the fact that the money got out. How much of the contaminated money was distributed according to Batgirl?
Oh my goodness. No, I've forgotten what she said, so
okay.
I'm relying on you here.
13,000.
13,000?
13,000, yep. And it's funny because then Batman, I love this, Batman says, who did you give it to? And, the bank manager's like, well, it went out. We just handed out money. Yeah, it's like, we don't keep track of who takes what money and such like that in terms of, the notes and such. I mean, I'm sure they have a record of this one withdrew X amount of dollars or this one cashed a check, but, they don't keep track of that kind of thing. So I thought that was an interesting or an odd question to ask. Who did you give it to?
Yes, indeed. I kind of feel that a lot of these lines were kind of they wouldn't have made it into season 1 or season 2, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think that the directors and the writers and certainly given how many episodes Oscar Rudolph was directing in season 3. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he just thought, my goodness, can we just try something different here? Just throw in a crazy line or something just to break up the monotony or something like that.
All right, so let me ask you, you're Robin the Boy Wonder, and you're smarter than he is in the 3rd season. And you've just finished watching this episode, and you turn to Batman, and how would you sum up your feelings about this episode in a holy exclamation?
Holy bumpy road ahead.
Ah, okay. And not just this episode, but you're talking about the episodes forthcoming.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's easy to say, having watched them. I mean, yeah, okay. If Boy Wonder was summing this episode up without having knowledge of the future 6 episodes, well, I don't know how he'd sum it up, to be honest. But I think given that the Nora Clavicle one turned out the way that it did, and basically just put the bar so low that now pretty much anything will go.
Right.
And given the self-parody that was evident in this one, Alfred breaking the fourth wall, that kind of thing. If there's a chance that the episodes to come will overuse some of the bad things that have been going on in this episode, then you're sort of thinking, yeah, I mean, we've had a great run for the past 2 years, but this is really quite an ignominious way to end.
Yeah. I gotta say though, despite all that, I gotta say, holy payoff. I kind of like this one. Honest to God, I didn't think I would. I even seem to recall as a kid not liking it. But in watching it now, it's not all bad. There is somewhat of a story here. Many of the plot elements do fit into place. There are some that as we've discussed, we scratching our heads and going, what? But there's just something here, and you're saying bumpy road ahead. I'm gonna try because I'm hosting this thing. I'm gonna try and be a little more hopeful as we move into the final 5 stories for this season, because all that's left is Shane, King Tut, Joker, Cassandra, Dr. Cassandra, and Minerva.
Sure, yeah. I think the King Tut one was pretty good. Right. And I'm sure you'll have a very exciting time discussing that one. The Shane one, I think for some of the one-liners in there, it's better than quite a few season 3 episodes. Dr. Cassandra and Joker's flying saucer. Well, I'm gonna say to the listeners out there, I'm sure that whichever guest John has on, and I'm sure that John himself will make it a very entertaining show for you.
Yeah. Hey, when I started the podcast all the way at the beginning, and I did like the first couple of episodes, I in particular the Joker, the very first Joker episode, which is still to me my favorite I actually I prefer the Joker story, the first one with the stolen cruise liner and such, and What's My Crime. I prefer that over the Riddler. I admit the Riddler is a very good one. The pilot episode is very good, but I prefer the Joker one. And I remember saying that this is as good as it gets as far as I'm concerned. And then I'm like telling people, but don't worry, listen on. We're going to have a good time. So it's the same thing here. We got 5 more to go, folks. I mean, if anything, if it's as bad as it is, maybe you want to listen to the train wreck. I don't know. Oh God, I'm not selling this very well.
No, I think, actually, okay, I better qualify what I said earlier about Robin's summary of things, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, the Nora Clavicle run for me sort of represented the nadir, and there are a couple of episodes coming up which, if you had watched them without knowledge of Nora Clavicle, you might not be too impressed with them, but compared to Nora Clavicle, you might be pleasantly surprised.
There you go. So Chris, thank you very much for agreeing to be on this episode here, even though this wasn't one of the better ones. It still was a fairly decent one. As far as Batman at 45, I mean, I'm going to be putting links, but is there anything like in the way of a website or anything that people can go to learn more about the book?
There was a website about 2 years ago, and I used to be quite active on it, and I used to blog in the style of the villains and the style of Bruce Wayne, and that was really funny. Actually, I quite enjoyed that. But unfortunately, the website was costing quite a bit to run, so I've taken it down for the time being. But if my work situation dramatically improves and I have a few dollars to spend, I'll put it back up, and you guys can check it out. But for the moment, no website, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right. Well, as I say, you can definitely I'll have links up in the show notes so that people can get their copy of Batman at 45. And as we've discussed in the past, I mean, this is definitely a work that, Bat fans should have. I mean, we all go to and refer to Joel Eisner's book, and it's a great book and all, but you really, in terms of helping us to remember what it is about the show, because it wasn't just the campiness. It wasn't just, I mean, you certainly talk about all that and the humor and such, but you also remind us of just how, in terms of who appeared in this show, and it creates the perfect time capsule in terms of encapsulating what this show meant at the time that it was on.
Well, that was the main message that I intended to give, really. This whole idea of this snapshot of mid to late 60s American popular culture. I've tried to get as much of it down in the book as I can. I'm pleased to say that some fans have contacted me, and they said, "Why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at that? This point that you raised here, maybe it's not quite right. Maybe you should change it." So it's been a really interactive experience. I've made a few new acquaintances because of it, and because it's all digital now, it's always a work in progress. Whenever I have a 2 or 3 days spare, as I did during the winter vacation, I'll always sort of sit down, try and add some new stuff, and it'll just keep growing and growing, I'm sure.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Chris, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John.
So, folks, tune in next time. As we discussed here, Shame is back. Now, I haven't watched it. I've made it a point not to go ahead and watch any of the remaining episodes until it's time to review them. Is he going to suffer the same fate as many of our villains as we've discussed here, including our core trio or 4 of the main villains? Is he going to suffer the same fate in this outing? As I'm joined in the discussion once again by the Hunic Outcast. So until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Once again, citizens, Chris, everyone, take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, chums. I don't have a bat phone, but you can contact the Batcave Podcast through its Facebook page, Twitter, email at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com, or by phone at 888-866-9010. Subscribe to the podcast via Libsyn.com, that's LIBSYN.com, or through iTunes. The Batcave Podcast is part of a series of pop culture podcasts from the Chronic Rift Network. Find them at chronicrift.com. So until next time, citizens, same bat time, same Batcave podcast.
It was very nice of each of you to drop by separately and unannounced.
Well, I was in the neighborhood, Barbara, and I thought you might buy me a cup of coffee.
Oh, make that 2 cups, Barbara. I just got tired being at the office.
I don't blame you, Daddy. I'm amazed your office does everything it manages to do. Foiling Penguin and his tainted money scheme and ridding Gotham City of those deadly Lygerian fruit flies.
Oh, but as usual, Barbara, the majority of credit goes to Batman and Robin.
And don't forget to mention Batgirl, Commissioner.
Yes, a remarkable young woman. I wonder who in the world she really is.
Hello? Yes, Bonnie, he's right here. Daddy?
What is it, Bonnie? Warden Crichton on the other phone, yes. Calling about 2 women who keep visiting shame at Gotham State Prison? Calamity Jan and Frontier Fanny? Staying somewhere in Gotham City. Tell the warden I'll look into it at once.
But little does Commissioner Gordon know what he's about to see, or what trouble that double-dealing desperado Shame is hatching right now with Calamity Jan and Frontier Fanny in the prison visiting room, and which will explode before everyone's eyes on our next episode.